Welcome in and welcome back, Ravens Flock. This is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report. And obviously, since it's the offseason and free agency is less than a month away, officially starting on March 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there's plenty of rumors flying around about who's going to be cut, who's going to be kept for the 2024 season. Now, many of the players who get cut still have a high likelihood of landing on a team before training camp. Some are even going to be back on the same team that just cut them. But for the Ravens, a lot of these rumors flying around about who will get cut, for me, they fall into three simple categories. So probably will get cut, possibility of getting cut, and absolutely no way, what are you on? Have you looked at their contract? So for the purpose of this video, we're going to take a look at the Ravens who are at risk of being cut based on their cap hit versus dead money rather than their positional relevance overall. So with that said, let's get to it.
They're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that. I'm a Raven. It's on. All year. Every year.
Before we get started, guys, it would help me out a lot if you would go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this with a fellow Ravens fan or even just a football fan in general. With that out of the way, we're going to get started with the players who are in most danger of getting cut, and the two biggest candidates for me are going to be Patrick Ricard and Tyus Bowser. While Ricard saw a fairly decent snap count in 2024, his actual usage when it came to plays with the ball in his hand just wasn't there. So for reference, in 2021, he was in on 555 offensive snaps, good for 44.69%. He only had 2 rushing attempts for 4 yards, but those 2 attempts were 2 first downs. He went 8 for 13, 63 yards and a touchdown, and had a long catch of 22 yards. 2022 was his biggest year. He had 698 offensive snaps, or 63.69%. He ran the ball 7 times for 16 yards and had 5 first downs. So again, moving the chains is mostly what he does. He also had 11 receptions for 74 yards and a long of 19. 2023, his snaps on offense went down to 443, or 39.34%. He didn't run the ball once, and he had 5 receptions for 52 yards. Of that, 28 yards came on the catch and run in the Detroit Lions game, which gave him 53% of his total yards on the season. He did have a touchdown, but it was against Miami when we were already up 35-19, so it's not exactly at the front of the playbook. Cutting Ricard would save the team $4 million, as his dead cap hit is $1.155 million, and his 2024 cap hit is set to be $5.155 million. So with the diminishing role in the offense under Monken, I would think that this team might want to move on from Project Pat heading into 2024, regardless of the fact that he is an additional tight end option and an additional offensive line assistant. So Tyus Bowser is even more obvious of an answer when you look at his numbers from last year. So he played 9 games, he had 2 sacks, 13 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 3 tackles for a loss, and 4 QB hits. Now, if you compare that with his numbers from this past year, you can see the drop-off. I mean, he didn't even come close, guys. No, but in all seriousness, obviously, yes, he was hurt. He was in the NFI list the entirety of 2023, but the circumstances are weird behind it, as it was off-site, so no one's really talking about it. And we have no idea what his status is when he's coming into the season. And with the ability to save $5.5 million and a roster space going forward, I don't think that Bowser has a place on this team in 2024. Now, the next group is 2 players that, as I said, they have a possibility of being cut, but their circumstances are much different than the first group, as both of these players are in greater positions of need and their impact of the team is potentially much higher than that of Tyus and Ricard. Starting with Ben Cleveland, whose potential impact just went much higher after the deadline to extend Kevin Zeitler expired on Monday, February 20th. Now, before that date, I had him as a most likely to be cut candidate, but I had to reevaluate after that decision to not extend Zeitler was made. I still don't think Cleveland is a starter, but I do have to admit that depth is now a concern at guard, and it may be more likely that we keep him. With a cap hit of $1.5 million, it's not huge, but with a dead cap hit of only $216,000, the team could save a little over $1 million by letting him go. And especially if they went into the draft to get a potential starter early, they could also compete with Voorhees and Macari for the starting guard positions. Now, the second name is not one that I would like to lose, and that is Justice Hill, which I know, he's only one of our 2 backs that we still have on the roster, and with Keaton's injury towards the end of the season, we don't know if he's going to be ready by the start of training camp or even the start of the season. We don't know what likelihood Keaton's going to have in this offense starting in 2024. But the Ravens are not going into next season with only those 2 locked in. And if Keaton does come back healthy, then he already does everything Justice does, but better. Now, Justice had a career year with the Ravens, but he stands to cost them almost $3 million against the cap, while his dead cap hit is only $500,000. The Ravens would save almost $2.5 million by cutting him, and they could roll that into a deal for a veteran back. There's a lot of talk right now, obviously, about Derrick Henry as well as Saquon Barkley, but they could also go into the draft and look to get either a guy later in the draft or even go undrafted. Keaton played in half as many games as Justice and still managed to outgain him, rushing 396 yards to Hill's 387. Keaton also had 93 receiving yards on only 9 receptions, while Hill had 206 yards on 28 receptions. Now, I like Justice, and I really think he had some serious pop at the end of the season, especially towards the San Fran and Miami game. But if the Ravens are looking to save a few bucks, then they might give Hill's contract another look. Now, the final group is one of 4 players, and I've either heard these players listed on somebody else's list. I've heard discussions about it on either Bleacher Report or, even just around the subreddits of other teams and whatnot. And every single one of them seemed ridiculous to me until I started looking at their contracts. And then it sounded even dumber. I'm going to go through these a bit faster, as their inclusion on this list really isn't because of risk of being cut, but more so to explain to you guys why cutting them is not only out of the question, but why there's no reason they should even be on this list at all. Number 1, Mark Andrews. If you're staring at the screen with a bewildered and confused expression, then you're not alone. I heard of his potential cap casualty status while roaming the vastness of the sports web, and not only was I sure it was clickbait, I was also sure there would be no substance or reasoning behind it. I was wrong. Apparently, several people think that Isaiah Likely, amazing player that he is all we need at the tight end position, and have just that quickly forgotten how good Mark Andrews is when healthy. Mark played in only 10 games the regular season. He missed week 1, and he left early in week 11. During that time, he caught 45 passes for 544 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. By the end of the season, he was still the leader in receiving touchdowns, with Zay and Likely each having 5. Now, Mark is set to have a $16.9 million cap hit in 2024, and with an $11.8 million dead cap hit, you would be saving a whopping $5.1 million to not keep a top 3 tight end on your team. Not to mention Lamar Jackson's favorite target and teammate, and a guy who worked his butt off after getting hurt after halfway through the season to make it back for a postseason game against the Chiefs. Yeah, it's not happening. Number 2, Marlon Humphrey. So just like Mark, he played in 10 games, and just like Mark, when he was out there, he was the best at his position, that being corner. He played at 541 defensive snaps in 2023, which was only 46.76%. And comparing that to his 22 numbers, where he played almost double that snap count at 1,053, which was good for 96.34%, it seems like, yeah, we didn't get our money's worth. But again, Chuck Clark is the only one that actually played 100% of the snaps last year, and that was for 1,093. So we know that Marlon is good when he's healthy. For those of you that remember how good Marlon was last year, let's take a look at how much better he was in 2023. He had a completion percentage of 46.7 compared to Brandon Stevens' 63. He allowed only 1 touchdown over the whole season. That was his first game back from surgery and missing almost a month of football. And he also had a passer rating of him against him only 64.6. This is on a secondary which led the league in opponent passer rating allowed, with a team average of 74.6. Humphrey's cap hit in 2024 is $22.8 million, with a dead cap hit of $27.8 million. So yeah, another stupid and objectively bad option for cutting. Number 3, Marcus Williams. Now, this is territory where I have definitely heard multiple people say we should get rid of Marcus, not only because he keeps getting hurt, but also of how good Geno Stone played last season. And those reasons, they don't really pass the bar for me, because the injuries, they weren't his fault, more so unfortunate events and circumstances. He's not an injury-prone player. And Geno is an unrestricted free agent, and with the deadline to extend him like Kevin Zeitler just passing, it seems unlikely the Ravens are going to re-sign him at this point. That's a luxury. The other huge reason the Ravens won't be moving on from Marcus and in favor of Stone is the $26,736,520 dead cap hit that they will have this year should they cut Williams at this point, who only has an $18.7 million cap hit in 2024. For the Ravens, the best case scenario at this point is Marcus gets healthy, stays healthy this offseason, and goes through the 2024 season healthy, because he's undeniably a very good safety when he is healthy. Now, Number 4 is Ronnie Stanley. So, this last one on my list here is certainly the one that I've seen thrown around a lot as a cut candidate. And while I understand the frustration and disappointment with how Ronnie has played at times this year, there's also several reasons as the Ravens should not cut him and move on from him. The first is the money. Yes, the cap hit is just north of $26 million, making him the second highest on the team behind only Lamar Jackson at $32.4 million. But his dead cap hit it currently sits at $17,836,500, and even if the Ravens could use that $8.3 million to help sign someone else, that is not getting you a starting left tackle in the NFL. I know Ronnie was unimpressive at times during the 2023 season due to injuries and a rotation, but there are also times where he flashed the talent that made him one of the best left tackles in the NFL only a few years ago. I know that sitting here hoping Ronnie comes back healthy, stays healthy, and plays well throughout 2024 is not a realistic plan at this point, but considering his backups don't seem to be ready yet, and the Ravens drafting at the 30th spot are not going to get a shot at a true first round starting left tackle, there's little else for us to look forward to, unfortunately, and we are, just like Ronnie, stuck between a rock and a hard place. That being said, I don't think at this point the Ravens will feel comfortable moving on from Ronnie, given his dead cap hit paired with the lack of stability in place behind him at such a key position on the offensive line, which is already going to be seeing a major shakeup at other positions. So, I know this video wasn't the bright and fun type of video, but with how this offseason has gone with coaches leaving and the long list of players set to walk out the door, there are going to be some hard and straight up uncomfortable topics and decisions that the Ravens front office will have to make in the coming months. And again, with that being said, there are also reasons to be excited too. The draft is always fun, in my opinion, and EDC has historically been more active in free agency than Ozzy was. So, with that being said, and Zay being cleared of all allegations, and not that he was charged at all, but that whole mess being cleared up, and with the Nelson Aguilar, whose original signing might have gone under the radar with a lot of fans, is receiving universal praise for his re signing this year. Now, I am grateful for how small the list of cut candidates seems to be so far this year, though, of course, there could be more, and I'm just simply wrong about it, which is fine. But free agency and the draft will ultimately decide many players' fates and the tenure with each team in the league, and for the Ravens, they're no strangers to that. I appreciate you all checking out this video today, and I look forward to giving you all updates as they arise over the coming months. As always, guys, stay safe out there, and go Ravens.